Mark, thank you so much for your book. And of course, you've written a number of books, but this particular one is really ideas and strategies and encouragement for the non-profit public relations professional. And what I wanted to ask is, do you feel that you need to encourage non-profit professionals? Because actually they probably tend to be quite earnest, not the sort of show-offy ones like the rest of us. And do you consider that a sort of a false modesty that actually doesn't help their organization? Do they need to get out of their comfort zone and actually learn to toot their horn a bit?
Well, I personally feel like that we all need encouragement, no matter what profession we take. Thinking back to when I first began penning this current book, I thought back to when I first began, and even though I came with several tools and understandings of the public relations profession, there were times where, wow, I just simply needed a good word, a word of encouragement, somebody who would say, you know, you're doing it the right way. And so with this book, although that is not the major thought with the chapters that I've written, it definitely is a piece of the fabric that is woven throughout the theme.
So it's true to nonprofits. This, if we build it and we do good work, it will come, or they will come. I think a lot of PR pros, even outside of nonprofits, have that kind of attitude. If we build it and we do good work, success will come. But what are the underlying beliefs or assumptions that go into that organizations have? Because the build it and they will come days, I would suggest they're not around anymore. You need to do more than that.
I completely agree. And it's a very dangerous philosophy to take, in my estimation. There's a well-meaning but dangerous belief that if the work is good enough, people will just notice.
Yeah.
And that is very much wrong. Impact does not automatically equal awareness. Too many leaders still see PR as optional when today it's essential. So some fear telling their story feels self-promotional, but sharing impact is actually an act of stewardship, in my opinion.
Now, Mark, the NGO sector has had such a tough time. I mean, they have been having an incredibly tough time for a long time. But in particular, you've had cuts with US aid. You've had a lot of cuts across the European governments because they've had to make all these donations to NATO and then reduce their international aid. And then on top of that, I really do feel for the PRs working in the not-for-profit sector, because even before the cuts, it was really hard for them to justify money for PR, because so many people, the average person on the street, happy to give money if they think that money is going directly to somebody in the field and directly to the recipient. But actually, they don't want that money to go towards operational costs, let alone probably the least aspect is towards a comms budget. And so I just want to know, from your research that you carried out in the book, how are these, not-for-profit PRs coping in this even more sort of enhanced minefield for them to navigate through, to be able to have a budget, protect that budget, and be able to communicate effectively?
That's an excellent question. And what I have found is, and perhaps no surprise, that the vast majority of nonprofits or NGOs get this and are quite sophisticated in their strategic and tactical efforts. But unfortunately, there are still far too many who do not understand what it takes to get a public to better understand and to be engaged with the mission and values of what they do. When you think about it, nonprofits are truly the backbone of our communities, whether it's the arts or healthcare. Even today, we're seeing newspapers that are turning toward becoming nonprofits. So nonprofits, it's even more essential than ever to understand and apply just basic PR 101 principles to be able to get out there. Sometimes we hear where individuals will brag on the fact that they are the best kept secret. A few years
Yeah.
ago, I was at a conference where a president of a nonprofit speaking before a group of community leaders proudly got up and said, "We are the best kept secret that this community has." And to my amazement, there were actually some people who applauded that. And I sat there in horror thinking, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. That's the worst thing that can be said. Calling yourself a best kept secret really means you've chosen comfort over growth.
Mm.
Donors don't give to secrets, and volunteers don't show up for secrets. So, best kept secrets attract passive supporters. Known nonprofits, however, build active advocates. And that's what we've got to be able to reach out and do to be effective nonprofit organizations. Great PR, as you all well know, isn't about ego. It's about advancing the mission through visibility. We're not just storytellers, we're community builders.
I love that. I wanted to ask because it's not just charities have to communicate to donors, but also to employees and potential employees, because actually most people working in the not-for-profit sector, they have to take cuts compared to taking a job in the private sector, for instance. And so you really have to communicate the impact that you're doing in order to not only attract donors, but also to attract talent to just join your cause as well, who are willing to take a cut often to move from private sector to the not-for-profit sector.
Oh, most certainly. This kind of reminds me of a memory I had as a child watching the old Ed Sullivan show here in the States. And there was an act in which there would be this gentleman who would come out, would put a plate on top of a pole on the middle of the stage, and he would start spinning it. And then as that plate's spinning, he would run off to the side. He'd come back, put another pole, get another plate, and on it went to the point where he had 20 plates all spinning at the same time. And he would rush around the stage making sure that none of them crashed. And when you think about it, those of us who are in public relations and who try our best to be very effective and strategic with it, we're in a lot of ways spinning those plates so that none of them fall. It's critically important that not only do nonprofits make sure that the public, the general public, and their donors or supporters understand the mission and what their plans are, but it's just as important making sure that the internal audience of their organizations know. I have seen with some of the nonprofits that I have consulted over the years, and the nonprofit may spend so much time, as they should, trying to make sure that the public and their supporters understand where they are going and how their dollars are being used effectively. Again, that's a plate that we got to keep on spinning. But when I would turn and ask their staff members about their current efforts, sometimes I would get a blank look saying, oh, we're doing that? So for those nonprofits that are doing great work, and the vast majority are doing incredible work, changing lives, making impact, it's important that the people who are working behind the scenes on their staff, that they too understand the big picture.
Would you agree the psychographic for the average nonprofit public relations practitioner, it might be a little different? Here's the reason I'm asking. There's back in my corporate days, and I sold my soul for a good 10, 12 years, corporate, to make as much money as I could. Worked in oil and gas, worked in utilities, and a very senior colleague from a competitor company, somebody I liked a lot, smart guy, all of a sudden quit his very senior position and went and was leading communications for basically homeless people within the city. extremely noble. I have no idea what the monetary switch was. I have to think it was dramatic. My goodness, I admired him for that, and it's something that I couldn't do. So does it take a different person?
I think so. I think so. Sometimes I think that in our profession, in the PR profession, the global aspect, there's somewhat of a misnomer that those who are who are doing nonprofit public relations work perhaps could not elevate themselves to a higher level, whether it be in the corporate world or perhaps in an agency world.
Right.
And I think to that end, we need to all be supportive of each other. We are all called to different aspects of this profession, as both of you are. And so we need to wrap our arms around one another. We need to learn from one another. We need to support each other. For me, when I was in college and I knew that I wanted to get into public relations, I loved being able to get out and meet people and understand where they were trying to drive their business and their energies and all. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go into agency work or getting into corporate work or whatever. And the more I thought about it and the more that I was getting experienced with it, I had an internship my college years, the last 2 years of my undergraduate, and then all through my graduate work, I handled public relations for the Department of Music at the college or at the university where I was at the time. And I absolutely loved it, absolutely loved it. And so I think, Doug, to your point, for those who are called, and I really use that word called, to serve in the nonprofit sector, they realize that they may not be earning the same salary that perhaps you might earn if you were in a corporate setting or perhaps in an agency setting. But with that calling, there is such a deep desire to serve, to make a difference for others in our communities, in our world. I for one, believe that we have such an incredible opportunity in a day and time where maybe civility, we've lost a little bit of that in our world, and we've lost we've lost some of the kindness that we need to bring. And so with nonprofits, it's not to say that the others don't bring that, but I think that it's a good reminder how nonprofits, perhaps those who are in PR, can help lead the way and wrap our arms around everyone, no matter where their calling is in this work, to join us for something that we can truly make a difference in our world.
It's almost like corporations need to prove their kindness because their work is taken for granted, and nonprofits need to prove their work because their kindness is taken for granted.
Oh, very well said. I agree.
I wanted to ask Mark that if you think about PR, it's really focused upon building trust. Sorry to interrupt. There seems to be a lot of background noise. Is it just me picking that up?
Is it papers?
Yeah.
Oh, just careful with I think you're shuffling papers, Mark. It's not. It's okay.
I may have hit one of my books.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. We'll cut that.
Okay. I'll ask again. So, Mark, they often say that PR is really about building trust with stakeholders. And when you think about it, a not-for-profit, would you say that it's easier for them to build trust with stakeholders because actually people think, well, they're a charity, they have a head start over the other for-profit sectors. Government tends to have a deficit in trust. Also, business isn't automatically trusted. But do you think actually when PRs are working in the charity sector, they have a bit of a head start over us? Or do you think that isn't the case because there's been so many high-profile charity scandals as well?
Mm-hmm. I think that is the expectation for those of us who work in nonprofit work, as it should be, because we are seeking philanthropic dollars to help support the missions that we have. Boy, trust is the absolute foundation for what we do. as public relations professionals, regardless of the sector of our work where we are, it has to be trust. And ethics has got to be the mandate for everything that we say and do. Our actions, everything that we do, our words, actions, deeds, have always got to stand on trust and the best of ethical practice. But for those of us who are in the nonprofit world, we have got to be mindful that the world is always watching us, perhaps a little bit more so, because they are giving money out of their own pocket, so to speak, to help see us go. There is the expectation, and rightfully so, that we are wise stewards, that we are very mindful, very respectful stewards of the resources that they have given us. People don't want to give to empty wells. They're not going to go to a well and just say, oh, I've got a spare $1,000 or so, and I'm just going to drop it into the well and bye, there you go. No, they want to see results. They want to see results from what that investment is with the nonprofit. And so it's incumbent on us, here again, going back to those basic principles that we have in our profession, making sure that through effective storytelling, excellent content strategies, always being out and about. I'll tell you, if you want to get me on a soapbox, here's one. It's that I always encourage people that even though we love the emerging technologies of the work, and I, for one, boy, I'm right there. I think my iPhone is kind of soldered to the side of my head on certain days. So we're all there. This right here is a perfect example. But I, for one, really believe in the power and influence that one-on-one interaction continues to have. It's, we're in the relationship building business. I know that's not a headline for today, but we are. We need to remind ourselves of that. And sometimes if we're not careful, we can easily do our work, perhaps almost throughout the day, behind our desk. Whereas we really need to be out and about. I'd like to remind the senior public relations students I teach that it's public relations, not desk relations.
Okay, give us a couple of practical first steps for an NGO leadership team today so that they can step away from being that best kept secret, just in 60 seconds or less.
Okay. First, PR must be treated as a leadership function, not an afterthought. Every nonprofit must clearly answer three things: who we serve, what problem we solve, and why it matters now. Impact has to be captured in real ways: stories, data, faces, and outcomes. Your staff, donors, and volunteers should all be empowered as story ambassadors. Video, media relationships, and digital storytelling are no longer optional tools. And then last, the messaging must shift from "look what we did" to "here's what changed because you believed."
I love
Really
that.
good.
Make the donor the hero of the story.
You bet. You bet.
Thanks for your
Thank you
time
so
today,
much.
Mark.